Rock bottom. Two simple words, but they carry the crushing weight of lost hope and bitter regret. It's not a place you visit. It's a place you feel deep in your bones. It's the cold isolation of failure when there's no one left to blame. It's waking up in the same grey haze of emptiness, day after day, wondering how life became this. Maybe you lost everything. A dream job, a relationship you thought would last forever, or a business you built with your own two hands. Maybe it was all taken in an instant, or maybe it slipped away so slowly you didn't even notice until it was gone. Or maybe the worst part is that you lost yourself. Can you remember who you were before this? Can you even picture the person you once hoped to be? But here's the truth, no one tells you about rock bottom. It doesn't care how you got here. It doesn't offer explanations. It doesn't make exceptions. Rock bottom is indifferent to your pain, to your struggle, to your reasons. It simply is a hard, unyielding reality. Now imagine standing in a pit so deep that the sky above is nothing but a memory. The walls are steep, slick with the failure of every attempt you made to climb out. The air is heavy, suffocating. Every breath feels like a question that hangs in the silence. Why keep going? This is where many give up. They let the weight of their failure pin them down. They lie there, motionless as life moves on without them. They tell themselves it's too late, that they're too broken, too tired, too far gone. But listen carefully. This is where the Stoics' journey truly begins. In the darkest depths, when everything has been stripped away, you are left with a choice. Will this place be your grave, or will it be your foundation? Will you surrender to despair, or will you rise? There is no shame in falling. The shame is in refusing to stand. Now ask yourself, what kind of person would you need to become to climb out of this pit? What strength would you have to summon? What discipline? What clarity of thought? What relentless determination? The climb will be long. It will be painful. You will scrape your hands on jagged rocks. You will stumble. You will bleed. But step by step, you must rise. Because rock bottom is not just a place of despair, it is also a place of truth. It strips away illusion. It reveals the raw, unfiltered reality of who you are and what you're made of. And in that truth lies power. The power to begin again, not as the person you were, but as the person you are now, forged by failure, hardened by pain, ready to rise. This is where your story begins. This is where the fire ignites. This is where you learn what it truly means to live. Section 1. The darkness of despair. There is a strange, suffocating stillness at the bottom of a fall. You don't feel the rush of failure anymore, only the cold, heavy silence that settles in its wake. It's a silence filled with unanswered questions, broken dreams, and the relentless echo of your own regrets. At rock bottom, there's no lower to go. You've stopped falling, but the weight of everything that brought you here presses down like a boulder. The emptiness feels infinite. This isn't simply pain, it's paralysis. Time slows. The world outside moves forward, but you are trapped, frozen in a moment that refuses to pass. For many, this is where the story ends. People linger here, overwhelmed by shame and regret, convinced that they've been swallowed whole by failure. The thought of moving forward feels impossible, and the thought of trying again stings like a fresh wound. But the Stoic sees this moment differently. The Stoic knows that stillness is not an ending. It is a pause, a necessary pause. You are at a threshold between two choices, surrender or reflection. It is tempting to surrender, to collapse into the comfort of blaming fate, luck, or circumstances, to declare yourself a victim and remain inert. But this kind of surrender is a slow death, the death of hope, the death of action. The alternative is reflection, and reflection is painful. It requires you to look into the depths of your failure without flinching, not with blame, but with clarity. It asks you to question everything. What brought you here? What decisions led to this moment? What beliefs have guided your actions? Seneca wrote, "As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters." This tale of your suffering, how much of it has been shaped by choices within your control? If you cannot answer this question truthfully, you will remain where you are. Look around at your life with unfiltered eyes. Every piece of ruin, every shard of broken ambition is a reflection of action or inaction. Your fall was not a single event. It was a series of small moments, decisions, habits, compromises that compounded over time. Even the most unpredictable disaster is shaped by your response to it. Rock bottom strips away illusion. What remains is truth, raw and unforgiving. This moment is a gift wrapped in suffering. It is the clearest mirror you will ever face, showing you who you are when there's nothing left to hide behind. This clarity, painful as it may be, is the first tool of your ascent. The Stoic does not waste this stillness. Before climbing, they understand the ground they stand on. Rock bottom isn't just a place of failure, it's a foundation. And the foundation you build depends on how honest you are with yourself now. Do not flinch. Do not turn away from what you see. Face it. Name it. Only by seeing the truth can you begin the climb. Only by embracing the stillness can you rise again. Section 2. Recognizing the fall. What does it mean to hit rock bottom? It is not simply failure. It is a collapse. When the weight of your decisions, your circumstances, or fate itself crushes you into the earth. It's losing the job you thought defined your worth. It's watching a relationship disintegrate despite your best efforts. It's that sinking realization when dreams shatter and all you are left with is the question, how did it come to this? In this moment, Stoicism offers its first and most difficult truth. You are responsible for how you interpret your suffering. Epictetus, born a slave and crippled by fate, spoke a hard truth from the depths of his own suffering. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. Pause and reflect on those words. Think deeply. It's not the event itself that destroys us. It's our opinion of it. The storm of your despair is fed by thoughts. I've failed. I'll never recover. I am broken. But what if you could change the story? Stoicism teaches us that life is indifferent. The universe does not conspire against you. It moves, indifferent to your hopes and fears. If the waves crash against you, they do not ask whether you will sink or swim. It is you who must decide how to meet them. You feel trapped at the bottom, but is it truly the world that imprisons you, or is it the chains of your own mind? Here lies the brutal beauty of Stoicism. It does not offer comfort, it offers clarity. This philosophy calls on you to stand in the wreckage of your life and see it for what it is, stripped of illusions. There is no fairness, no cosmic justice ensuring your success. Life owes you nothing. It is tempting to curse fate, to sink into self-pity and bitterness. But Stoicism asks you to look harder. Marcus Aurelius, an emperor who faced war, plague, and the weight of ruling an empire, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Think of it. Power, even in your weakest moment. Strength, even when everything crumbles. It begins with this act. Accept what has happened. Let go of the illusion that you can undo the past. But acceptance is not surrender. Do not mistake it for passivity. The Stoic does not say, "This is my fate, so I will do nothing." Number acceptance clears the mind. It strips away the fog of regret and fear, revealing the only truth that matters. What can you do next? When you hit rock bottom, look around. Feel the rawness of failure. The darkness may be deep, but it's honest. There are no more lies here. You've fallen, yes, but you are still breathing. And that breath is your beginning. Acceptance is clarity. Clarity is power. The fall may feel like the end, but it is the first step forward. Section 3. The gift of rock bottom. At the moment, we can't understand that rock bottom isn't a curse, it's a gift. When everything collapses, when failure presses down on you until breathing becomes a struggle, the world turns cold and hope seems like a distant memory. But rock bottom is not the end. It is a brutal teacher, unforgiving, relentless, and most importantly, necessary. Comfort does not change people. Success rarely forces reflection. When life is easy, illusions thrive. You begin to believe that you have time, that things will last forever, that you deserve the success you have. These beliefs create a false sense of security, and it's only when life rips them away that you're faced with the painful truth. Rock bottom shatters everything you thought was certain. What remains is clarity, raw and undeniable. It is terrifying, but within that terror lies power. When there is nothing left to lose, there is nothing left to fear. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." At rock bottom, this wisdom transforms into a lifeline. The external world may be in ruins, but your mind is still yours. You are left with the ultimate question: who are you when the world turns against you? Not the person you present to others, not the achievements that once defined you. You, stripped bare of all pretense. This moment, painful, humbling, and raw, is where your real self emerges. Weaknesses that were once ignored come to the surface. Fears you buried in the past are forced to confront you. The clarity that emerges is a gift. It is a gift that comfort could never offer. Marcus Aurelius taught, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The rock at the bottom of your life, the one you lie on, broken and exhausted, is not a grave. It is the foundation from which you will build something stronger. The obstacle itself becomes your ladder. There are lessons that rock bottom offers for those brave enough to listen. Lesson 1. Everything temporary must be embraced with humility. Wealth, status, and relationships, none of these are guaranteed. Rock bottom is a stark reminder that security is an illusion. Lesson 2. Pain is a forge. Just as fire tempers steel, suffering shapes the soul. The pressure of your pain is what creates resilience. Your scars will become symbols of survival, proof that you endured. Lesson 3. Priorities become clear. When everything else falls away, you see what truly matters. The noise of life fades, and only the essential remains. What you have left is your mind, your will, and your power to choose how you respond. When you understand these truths, rock bottom is no longer a place of defeat. It becomes a place of transformation. The person who enters that pit is not the same person who will rise from it. You are stripped of your pride, but in its place, you find strength. You lose comfort but gain clarity, and when you stand again, you do not rise as the person who fell. You rise as someone reborn, stronger, wiser, tempered by hardship. This is the paradox of rock bottom. It feels like death, but it is the birthplace of new life. Every scar, every bruise, every tear shed becomes a brick in the foundation you will build. It is not a curse, it is your proving ground. So when despair threatens to overtake you, remember, rock bottom is not the end. It is the beginning of the climb. The sky may seem distant, but with every step forward, it comes closer. And with every step, you will rise. Section 4. The power of focus. In the depths of despair, it's easy to become overwhelmed by everything that feels out of control. The weight of your circumstances, the crushing sense of helplessness, can paralyze you. You may look at your situation and feel as though the world is conspiring against you, that every aspect of your life is spiraling beyond your reach. The Stoic philosophy offers a powerful antidote to this chaos. The realization that there are only two categories in life, what you can control and what you cannot. The Stoic approach to this truth is simple but profound. Focus only on what you can control. At the heart of Stoicism is the idea that while we cannot dictate the events of the world, we do have absolute dominion over our own thoughts, our reactions and our actions. Everything external is outside our grasp, but our responses are entirely within our power. The moment you begin to focus on what is within your control, you regain the strength to move forward. This may seem counterintuitive, especially when the weight of the world seems so heavy, but it is precisely at this point, when the situation feels impossible, that focusing on your power over your own actions is the most crucial. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." The external world will always be unpredictable and uncontrollable. Storms will come, people will disappoint, opportunities may slip away, but the one thing no one can take from you is the ability to choose your response. The power lies in the mind, in the ability to decide how you will meet each challenge, no matter how daunting. In practice, this means narrowing your focus to the immediate actions that are within your control. If you're facing financial hardship, focus on what steps you can take today to change your circumstances. Research new opportunities, cut unnecessary expenses, work on improving your skills. If your relationships are strained, work on improving your communication. Be kind and patient and take ownership of your actions. What is not in your control, what other people think, how the world reacts, the timing of events, should be left alone. You cannot change the weather, but you can adjust your sails. When you embrace this focus, you begin to remove unnecessary distractions. So often we lose energy trying to control things that are not ours to control. This leads to frustration, burnout, and ultimately stagnation. But by consciously letting go of the need to control everything, you free yourself to act with clarity and purpose. In moments of stress, this focus on what you can control offers a kind of inner peace. While the storm rages outside, you remain calm, not because you are unaffected, but because you recognize the limits of your influence. This realization gives you the emotional space to think clearly and act deliberately. Consider how you can apply this in daily life. When you feel overwhelmed, take a step back and ask yourself, what can I do right now? Perhaps you cannot change the overall situation, but what is the next small, constructive action you can take? It might be as simple as taking a deep breath, organizing your thoughts, or reaching out to someone who can offer support. Even the smallest act can shift your momentum, especially when it is grounded in the understanding that you are choosing to act based on what you can control. Moreover, when you focus on your own actions, you begin to realize that there is great power in consistency. Small, repeated actions, made consistently over time, begin to compound. Stoics understood that lasting change is not about grand gestures, but about everyday discipline. This practice doesn't require dramatic overnight transformations. Instead, it thrives in the quiet moments of perseverance and steady progress. Over time, those actions accumulate and create a foundation upon which greater achievements are built. The Stoic wisdom of focusing on what you can control also has a profound impact on your emotional resilience. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you stop blaming yourself for things that were never your responsibility. You stop carrying the weight of things you cannot change. This releases an immense amount of psychological pressure and opens the door to inner peace. You begin to act from a place of strength rather than from fear or frustration. In times of hardship, this shift in focus, this mastery over what is in your control, becomes a stabilizing force. The road ahead may still be difficult, but by focusing on your thoughts, your actions, and your decisions, you begin to move forward with intention and clarity. You become like a ship that, though battered by the waves, is still steered steadily by its captain, who knows that though he cannot calm the storm, he can navigate through it. The Stoic practice of controlling what you can offers not just a strategy for survival, but a path to true freedom. When you embrace your own agency, you take back the reins of your life. What once felt like an endless battle against fate becomes a conscious, empowered journey. You are no longer at the mercy of the external world. Instead, you are at the helm of your own destiny, and every choice you make, no matter how small, brings you closer to your goal. Section 5. The courage to begin again. Climbing out of despair doesn't require an immediate leap to greatness. It begins with the smallest of actions. When you're at rock bottom, the idea of grand accomplishments can feel overwhelming. You might look up at the heights others have reached and think it's impossible to ever get there. But the Stoic mindset teaches that all progress begins in the small, simple things. You don't need to make a monumental change right away. What matters is the courage to begin, no matter how insignificant the step may seem. At first, it may feel like you're moving through quicksand. Each action is sluggish, every effort barely making a dent. But the Stoics believed in the power of daily discipline. Seneca, in his letters, often emphasized that it's not the big acts of virtue or grand gestures that determine character, but the small choices made over and over. Even when nothing dramatic changes in the moment, persistence leads to change. It's in the mundane, routine actions where you rebuild your strength. If your life is in disarray, perhaps the first step is simply getting out of bed in the morning. Do it with intention. Breathe deeply. Feel the texture of the sheets, the warmth of the sun on your skin as you rise. These are victories. Once you've conquered the first moment of your day, you can begin to conquer the next. The key is to set your sights on manageable goals. The Stoics didn't seek to change the world overnight. Instead, they focused on incremental improvements. By breaking down the overwhelming journey into smaller, achievable tasks, you give yourself the chance to build momentum. Maybe today, you focus on reading a chapter of a book, taking a walk, or reaching out to a friend. These actions, while small, will add up over time, and soon you'll find yourself moving in the right direction without even realizing it. It's easy to fall into the trap of all or nothing thinking, especially when you're at rock bottom. You may feel like if you can't completely fix everything at once, then it's not worth doing anything at all. But Stoicism teaches us to reject this mindset. Every action, no matter how small, is valuable. Each step forward, however modest, brings you closer to your goal. Even a tiny improvement is still improvement. An improvement compounds. The courage to begin is often more difficult than the actual action itself. The longer you stay in a state of despair, the more power it has over you. But once you break the paralysis of inaction, you free yourself. A single moment of decision, a choice to get up, to try, to move forward, is enough to start the transformation. This is the power of taking small, deliberate steps. They create momentum, and momentum creates change. The Stoics also understood that the journey is long. They knew that progress would be slow, and that at times you would falter. But they also knew that true growth never happens in a straight line. Failure and setbacks are part of the process. The important thing is to keep going, even when the path seems unclear. No step is wasted because each one takes you closer to mastery. The road is long, but with each day, you'll find yourself a little bit stronger. In your darkest moments, take solace in the fact that each step is a triumph. You are not expected to climb the entire mountain in one day. But if you make a decision each day to rise, to act, to keep moving, then eventually you will look back and realize how far you've come. The courage to begin is not about conquering the world in an instant. It's about conquering the next moment, the next step, the next breath. And through this courage, you rebuild yourself piece by piece, moment by moment. In time, those small actions become the foundation of your resilience. Your capacity for endurance grows with each passing day, and your inner strength becomes unshakable. When you finally reach higher ground, you will realize that the path you took was not just about physical progress. It was about transforming your spirit. This journey, though quiet and unremarkable in its early stages, shapes you in ways that are immeasurable. The Stoic teaches that victory is not always loud or celebrated. Sometimes the most profound victories are those that happen quietly, in the solitude of persistence. So, take that first step. Even when it feels insignificant, understand that it is the most important step of all. The courage to begin again is where everything starts. Section 6. Turning suffering into strength. Pain is inevitable. It is a natural part of the human experience, woven into the fabric of our lives. In those moments when the weight of the world feels unbearable, when the pain becomes too much to bear, it is easy to see it as a force working against you, but the Stoic sees it differently. To the Stoic, pain is not an enemy to be vanquished, but a teacher to be learned from, a crucible in which one's character is tested and strengthened. The philosopher Seneca, in his letters to Lucilius, writes, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." He understood that hardship, while uncomfortable, provides an opportunity for growth that ease and comfort cannot. It is through suffering that the soul is tempered, much like metal being forged in fire. The more intense the heat, the more resilient the steel. Without pain, there is no transformation. When we experience hardship, it can often feel as though we are being punished, that life is dealing us blow after blow without reprieve. But suffering is not a random act of cruelty. It is a universal experience, and it is the common thread that binds us all. No one is exempt from its touch. In this, there is a strange sort of solidarity. Others have walked this path before you and will continue to do so after. This shared burden unites us and offers a form of strength that comes not from avoiding suffering, but from accepting it with grace. The Stoic mind does not seek to run from suffering, but to understand it and to use it. When faced with pain, instead of retreating, we lean into it. The Stoic practice is not to ignore the pain, to bury it under distractions or false comforts. No, the Stoic faces the pain head-on, acknowledging its presence without letting it consume them. They understand that the pain is a temporary condition and that through their response, they can rise above it. In the midst of suffering, the Stoic asks, not why me, but what can I learn from this? How can this pain shape me into a stronger, wiser person? It is not about rejecting the discomfort, but about transcending it. Pain is a teacher. It shows you your limits, exposes your vulnerabilities, and forces you to confront your deepest fears. But it also provides you with the opportunity to surpass those limits, to overcome those fears, and to emerge stronger than before. Think about a muscle growing stronger through exercise. It tears, it strains, it hurts. But with each tear, it rebuilds itself, more resilient than before. The Stoic understands that pain, much like this process, can be a form of building strength. The more you face and endure, the more capable you become of handling whatever life throws at you in the future. With each hardship, you grow more adept at navigating the storms of life until eventually the very things that once broke you become the sources of your power. In this way, suffering has a dual role. It is both the test and the solution. It reveals your weaknesses, but it also provides the opportunity to correct them. It may strip you of comfort, but in the process, it can reveal your true strength. The Stoic does not waste time lamenting their suffering. Instead, they see it as an essential part of their journey. They know that to be human is to experience pain, but it is how you respond to that pain that defines who you truly are. It is crucial to remember that pain does not last forever, no matter how overwhelming it may seem in the moment. The Stoics teach us to think of time as the great healer. Every moment of suffering eventually passes, leaving behind only the lessons learned. The key is to endure with patience and resilience, understanding that what seems unbearable today will fade into memory tomorrow. As Marcus Aurelius writes, what is bad is not the pain itself, but your reaction to it. By choosing to respond to pain with composure and fortitude, you take away its power to break you. In the deepest moments of despair, when it feels as though nothing will ever change, the Stoic holds on to the knowledge that suffering is not permanent. It is simply part of the human experience, a necessary phase in the cycle of growth. In those dark times, remember that the pain you feel now is not the end of your story. It is only the beginning of a new chapter. Embrace it, learn from it, and allow it to shape you into someone who can withstand the challenges that lie ahead. Pain, when embraced and understood, can become a powerful ally. It forces you to let go of things that no longer serve you, to shed the illusions of comfort and security, and to grow into someone who is unshakable, someone who cannot be broken by external forces. By embracing suffering, you reclaim your power. You refuse to be defined by your circumstances, and instead you rise above them. So, when pain comes, and it will come, do not shy away from it. Stand tall, face it with courage, and allow it to forge you into something greater. Just as a sword is sharpened by fire, so too will your character be honed by the hardships you face. The Stoic does not merely endure pain, they transform it. They allow it to mold them into a person who can face the next challenge, stronger and more resolute than before. And in this way, suffering becomes not a burden to bear, but the very thing that propels them to greatness. Section 7. Silence the inner critic. The battle within is often the fiercest. It is not the world outside that defeats us, but the voices inside our minds. They whisper failure. They echo doubt. They remind us of every mistake we've made. They are the internal critics, the ones who speak to us in the language of weakness, insecurity, and fear. These voices tell us that we are too broken to rise again, that our mistakes define us, and that our flaws are too great to overcome. It is a relentless barrage, an unyielding attack that tries to bury our resolve beneath layers of guilt and regret. Yet, the Stoics understood something vital about the nature of these inner voices. They understood that thoughts are not facts, and that we as human beings are not our thoughts. It's essential to realize that the voice of self-criticism does not come from our true selves. It comes from the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and what we are capable of. These stories are often shaped by past experiences, by other people's judgments, by societal expectations, but they do not have to be our reality. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." The suffering we feel from this internal critic is often an illusion. It is a creation of our own minds, amplified by our fears and insecurities. This critic doesn't see the full picture. It doesn't understand our capacity to change, to grow, to rise above the past. It is a voice that thrives on our doubts and our failures, but it is not the truth. The first step to silencing the inner critic is to become aware of it, to recognize that it is not a voice of reason, but a voice of fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of facing the truth of who we are. When you hear that voice, step back, observe it, don't react to it. Simply recognize it for what it is, an old habit, a conditioned response, a reflex rooted in past wounds. The Stoics teach us that we must train ourselves to pause before we act on any emotion or thought. In that pause, there is space for reason. Once we have identified the voice, the next step is to challenge it. Every time that critic rises, ask yourself, is this the truth? Is this thought helpful? Most often, it will not be. The inner critic will exaggerate, it will generalize, and it will distort reality. It will tell you that because you failed once, you will always fail. It will tell you that because you are down, you can never get back up. But none of this is true. Failures are simply lessons in disguise. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus famously said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." In other words, failure is not a permanent state, but an opportunity to respond with growth and resilience. The act of silencing the inner critic is not about denying the negative thoughts, but about taking control of them. Instead of letting them dictate your actions and your mood, take a step back and observe them with the objectivity of a third party. When you do this, you begin to realize that these thoughts are not commands, they are proposals. You have the choice whether to accept them or not. The Stoics also emphasize the power of self-talk, replacing negative, disempowering thoughts with more rational and constructive ones. Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," say, "I've faced challenges before and overcome them. I can face this too." Replace, "I'm a failure" with, "I am learning and growing, and failure is a part of that journey." In doing so, you reframe your perspective, shifting from a mindset of defeat to one of empowerment. It is also important to remember that the Stoic concept of virtue is not about perfection, but about striving. Striving to act with wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance in all things, regardless of how often we stumble or fall. The path of Stoicism is not one of flawless execution, but of constant improvement. The critic within us often holds us to an impossible standard, but the Stoics teach us to accept our imperfections as part of the process. To recognize that each mistake is a step forward, not backward. Each failure is a tool for growth, not a permanent reflection of our worth. The Stoics also remind us that external validation is fleeting and unreliable. In silence, we find strength, not in the applause of others, but in the integrity of our own actions. When you stop seeking validation from the world, the voice of the inner critic weakens, for it thrives on comparison and approval. Focus instead on the effort, the process, and the values that guide you. Trust in your own judgment and in your ability to do what is right, regardless of what others think or say. Silencing the inner critic is not a one-time task, but a daily practice. The more you practice it, the more you will start to recognize the difference between the voice of fear and the voice of reason. You will begin to distinguish between the critic that wants to keep you small and the inner wisdom that urges you to grow. The critic may never fully disappear, but it will lose its power over you. As you silence this voice, you will find room for a new voice to emerge, the voice of resilience, the voice of purpose, and the voice of strength. It is the voice that says, "I am capable." It is the voice that says, "I can rise again, no matter how many times I've fallen." And with each day, as you train yourself to listen to this voice and not the critic, you will find yourself becoming the person you always had the potential to be, the person who does not shrink from failure, but faces it head-on and rises stronger every time. Section 8. Find strength in others. Even the strongest Stoic understands the profound truth that we are not meant to journey through life alone. Strength, resilience, and wisdom are often cultivated not just in solitude, but in the company of others. Stoicism, at its core, encourages self-sufficiency, but it also acknowledges the power of relationships. The interconnectedness of humanity is a pillar of the Stoic worldview. We were made for cooperation, for support, for guidance from one another. The wisdom of the Stoics teaches us that, while we must depend on ourselves for inner strength, we must also lean on the collective strength of our fellow humans when we falter. When you are at rock bottom, reaching out for help does not signify weakness. Rather, it is an acknowledgement of your humanity. It is an act of courage. Every great Stoic knew the importance of mentors, teachers, and companions on their journeys. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoics, often reflected on the kindness and support he received from those around him, how the guidance of his tutors and the companionship of his friends helped him navigate the storms of his reign. Despite his immense power, he never saw himself as above others. He saw himself as part of a larger whole, a part of something bigger than his own struggles. In moments of despair, it can be easy to feel isolated, as though no one could possibly understand the weight of your suffering. But the Stoics teach us that isolation is often a self-imposed prison. Seeking the counsel of others does not make you less independent. It is an acknowledgement of shared experience. When you seek wisdom, you connect to a collective pool of human knowledge. And often, in the experiences of others, you will find the reflection of your own struggles. It is in this exchange that we learn we are not alone, even in our darkest moments. The act of asking for help, whether it's seeking advice from someone you trust, reaching out to a community, or simply allowing yourself to be vulnerable in the presence of another, is itself an act of strength. In doing so, you break the walls of isolation and open yourself up to healing. The Stoics did not shun their relationships. They saw them as vital to their growth. Seneca, in his letters, spoke of the importance of companionship and friendship, reminding us that the presence of good people in our lives can lift us when we cannot lift ourselves. Even more than reaching out to others, the Stoic understands the value of being there for others. When you are suffering, it can seem difficult to offer support to anyone else. But Stoicism teaches that true strength lies in the ability to offer what you can, even when you feel empty. Helping others, sharing wisdom, or simply being a listening ear can lift your own spirit in ways you cannot imagine. In giving to others, you also receive. This exchange creates a cycle of growth and resilience. Moreover, the Stoics' relationship with others is grounded in understanding. It's not just about the advice they offer or the comfort they provide. It's about recognizing that everyone faces trials, that no one is exempt from hardship. When you see others as fellow travelers on this journey, your perspective shifts. You no longer view your suffering as a unique burden, but as a shared experience. The empathy you extend to others will in turn return to you. The support you seek is often waiting for you in places you may have overlooked, whether in the advice of a mentor, the encouragement of a friend, or even in the simple act of sharing your journey with others who have walked a similar path. The Stoics also recognize that not all people will offer the support we seek in ways we expect. But even in these instances, there is a lesson. Through interactions with difficult individuals, we learn patience, resilience, and the art of detachment. These lessons are often invaluable on our path to growth. Instead of resisting or resenting those who offer no solace, the Stoic embraces these experiences, learning to maintain inner peace regardless of external circumstances. Through the power of others, we are reminded that we are not defined by our failures. You are not defined by your lowest point. Your story is much larger than any single moment of despair. The connections you foster, the lessons you learn from others, and the empathy you offer, these are the true measures of your strength. And through these relationships, you will find not just comfort, but also the motivation to rise again. To rise from rock bottom is not simply to rise alone, it is to rise together with the strength and support of those who walk beside you. The Stoic ideal of self-sufficiency is not about cutting yourself off from the world, but rather understanding your place within it. In recognizing that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, we find the courage to keep moving forward, knowing that the road ahead will be made lighter with others by our side. Section 9. Remember the shortness of life. Time is the most precious resource we have, and yet it slips through our fingers like sand. When you're at rock bottom, when you're drowning in pain and disappointment, it can feel as if there's no way out, no way forward. But the truth is, time continues its march forward, indifferent to your struggles. Your suffering is but a moment in the vast expanse of your life, and yet that moment can feel endless, overwhelming. The Stoics, however, remind us that time is finite, that every day we waste dwelling in our despair is a day we can never reclaim. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, was constantly aware of the shortness of life. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." The reality of death is not something to fear, it is something to embrace, for it sharpens our focus, clarifies our priorities, and forces us to understand what truly matters. In this light, your struggles, though painful, are but a small fraction of the time you have. Yes, right now it feels like the weight of the world is crushing you, but understand this. Every second you spend in the pit of despair is a second that could have been spent building something greater. The key is to recognize that time is moving forward, with or without your consent, and the longer you stay stuck, the longer you delay the opportunity to shape your future. The Stoic does not allow this moment of despair to become the defining moment of their life. Instead, they see it as a temporary chapter in an ever-unfolding story, one that they are still writing. Seneca, another great Stoic philosopher, said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." He argued that the greatest mistake we make is not the inevitability of death, but the tendency to squander the time we have by focusing on fleeting distractions and minor inconveniences. When you're at rock bottom, time can seem irrelevant because your pain dominates everything. But by focusing on how precious each moment is, you can begin to shift your mindset. You are not defined by this pit you've fallen into. You are defined by how you use the time you have left to rise from it. When the Stoics meditate on death, they are not consumed by fear. They are motivated by the understanding that life is fragile. To truly appreciate the shortness of life is to realize that every moment of suffering is an opportunity to grow, to learn, to act in accordance with virtue. When you know that your time is limited, you learn to prioritize what matters most, living with purpose, embracing hardship, and striving to be the best version of yourself. You are not promised tomorrow. The pain you feel today, the weight you carry, will not last forever. The storm will pass, and in its wake, you will be changed. The question is not how long the storm will last, but how you choose to weather it. The Stoics believed that the essence of life is to live in accordance with nature, to make the best use of your time, and to remember that death is not the enemy. It is the one certainty in life that gives every moment its value. When you remember this, when you internalize it, it changes your entire perspective on your struggle. You are not alone in this battle. The great men and women of history, those who faced seemingly insurmountable odds, did not see death as a threat. They saw it as a reminder to live fully, to live with purpose, and to leave a legacy of resilience and strength. If your time is limited, then every setback, every hardship, is an opportunity to rise, to keep fighting, and to build something worth remembering. And so when you're at your lowest, remember the shortness of life. Let it fuel your resolve. The clock is ticking, and with every passing moment, you have the power to turn your life around. Time is a relentless force, but it is also a precious gift. How you choose to use it, especially when everything seems lost, will determine the story of your rise. You are the author. Section 10. Transforming rock bottom into a foundation and rising from it. As you stand at the very bottom, the weight of the world on your shoulders, it's easy to believe that this is the end. But the truth is far more profound. This place of darkness, of suffering, of loss, this is not where your story ends. This is where your transformation begins. Rock bottom is the soil in which you plant your roots, the bedrock from which your strength will grow. It is the hardest part of the journey, but it is also the most defining. It tests you, shapes you, and molds you into something stronger than you ever imagined. The Stoic way is not to run from adversity, but to face it head-on, to use it as fuel for growth. From this point forward, you no longer view the world in the same way. You realize that the challenges you face are not external forces meant to break you, but internal forces meant to build you. The pain you feel, the crushing weight of failure, is nothing more than a refining process. It burns away the impurities of your character, leaving only the solid core of who you truly are. This pain is not a punishment, it is a lesson, a teacher whose wisdom comes through the scars it leaves behind. You are now in the process of creating something unbreakable. The struggle you endure is shaping your mental fortitude, your resilience, and your character. Every setback, every disappointment, every tear you shed is a brick in the foundation of a life that will rise higher than before. You are not defeated by what has happened to you. You are transformed by how you respond. And it is in this response that your true power lies. Think about the Stoic practice of amor fati, the love of fate. It means accepting everything that happens to you, even the most painful moments, as part of the grand design. You stop resisting and start embracing. The Stoic does not see hardship as something to avoid, but as an opportunity to practice virtue. The obstacle becomes the way. The pain becomes the teacher. Each step you take in this ascent is built upon the foundation of everything you've overcome. The deeper the fall, the higher the climb. With every piece of yourself you rebuild, you become more than you were before. The scars you carry will no longer be marks of defeat. They will be signs of your survival, symbols of your strength. You no longer see the world through the lens of weakness and fear, but through the eyes of someone who has walked through the fire and emerged stronger for it. This is your metamorphosis, the moment you stop being the victim of your circumstances and start becoming the architect of your own fate. As you rise, remember that there is no finish line. The Stoic path is one of continuous growth. Even when you reach what you thought was the top, there will always be new heights to climb. But this is not a burden. It is a privilege. With every new challenge, you will discover deeper reserves of strength you didn't know you had. You will learn to be comfortable with discomfort, to embrace uncertainty, and to walk with courage even when the road is unclear. In the end, rock bottom was never meant to break you. It was always meant to be your foundation, a solid base from which to rise. You are not just surviving, you are becoming. Every experience, every obstacle, every challenge, these are the materials that are building the new you. You will rise, not in spite of your hardships, but because of them. And as you rise, you will look back with gratitude, not for the pain itself, but for the strength and wisdom it has given you. You've built something unshakable. This is not just survival, this is mastery. In closing, remember that this is your moment. It may not feel like it yet, but everything you've endured has prepared you for this. You've fallen, you've suffered, and through it all, you've learned the most important lesson of all. You are still here. You are still breathing. You are still capable. Your journey is far from over, but the hardest part has passed. You've learned how to endure. You've learned how to stand when the world has tried to make you kneel. And now, you are ready to rise. Every setback, every failure, every moment that felt like it would break you has not defeated you. It has made you stronger. You stand today not in spite of your struggles, but because of them. Every hardship you faced is now a foundation, an anchor, a bedrock that will carry you forward. You may not have the answers yet, but now you know the one thing that matters most. The path ahead is yours to carve. The Stoic knows that life is filled with unpredictability, but it is also filled with opportunities for growth. No matter how far you've fallen, the power to rise has always been within you. In the depths of despair, when everything seems lost, it's easy to forget that you have everything you need to move forward. The Stoics teach us that we have control over one thing: our response. You cannot always control the world around you, but you can control how you meet it. You can meet it with calm determination. You can meet it with clarity of mind. You can meet it with the unshakable understanding that no matter what happens, you will face it with courage. Now, as you stand on the edge of a new beginning, let go of the weight that held you down. Let go of the stories you told yourself about your limitations, the lies you believed about your inadequacy. Those are not your truths. They never were. Your truth is that you are stronger than you've ever known, and you are capable of far more than you've ever imagined. The climb from rock bottom does not happen overnight. It is a series of small, intentional steps, but every single one of those steps moves you forward. Every choice you make to push past the pain, to rise above the doubt, every moment you choose to keep going, it all adds up. And one day, when you look back, you will see the progress that right now feels invisible. You are a living testament to the Stoic philosophy. You are a testament to resilience, to the truth that even in the face of the harshest challenges, we have the ability to transform, to rebuild, and to rise higher than before. The path may be long and the road may be hard, but there is power in every step, in every decision, in every ounce of strength you summon from within. And in the end, the journey itself becomes your greatest victory. So rise, not just because you can, but because you must. Rise not only for yourself, but for the future version of you who will stand tall, proud of the battles fought and won. Rise because this moment, this very moment, will be the one you look back on with pride, knowing that it was here in the face of your deepest struggle that you found your greatest strength. The climb may never end, and that's okay. For every challenge you overcome, another may appear, but now you know what you're capable of. You know that no matter what life throws at you, you have the strength to meet it. Every obstacle becomes the stepping stone to a higher version of yourself. The fire inside you, fueled by every hardship you've faced, burns brighter than ever. So rise and keep rising. With each moment, you get closer to the person you were always meant to be. You are not defined by where you've fallen, but by how you rise. And in the end, it is the rise that will define you. Now watch this video on why to never focus on results, but rather the process. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone that you feel needs to hear this. Thank you for watching, and remember to be stoic always.